Oi, 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 oi. News Talk is online. News Talk is a production of Paltalk.com. Thank you, Boaz, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet with more than 4.5 billion unique subscribers. I'm your host, Gary Baumgarten. Today, we shall be talking about two issues. You know that Bill O'Reilly of Fox News Channel went up to Sylvia's Soul Food Restaurant in Harlem, New York City's premier soul food restaurant, and came out of there and said, "Good golly, these black people act normal just like white people or Italians. I am so amazed." That's a paraphrasing him. Not too far off from what he said. I want to talk about that and want to talk about white America's views about black America. But first, a national poll finds that Americans are in a funk. The poll was conducted by the Sacred Heart University Polling Institute. It shows that 62.5% of Americans believe that most Americans seem to be in a funk. 66% of them believe it's because of politicians who constantly gripe, and that those politicians are bringing us down. Well, we went onto the streets of New York City to ask people what they think about this. And here we go to see what one gentleman has to say, Dominic Barone. This poll by the Sacred Heart University Polling Institute shows that some 63% of Americans seem to be in a funk, and about 67% of them believe that it's politicians who are always griping that are bringing us down. What are your feelings about that?
I agree 100% with that, actually. When does anybody really feel, good about, the politician that they've elected into office? They don't really seem very personable. They have a career to look forward to. They'll change their views to try and get elected again. For the 2008 elections, you have politicians that are using taxpayers' money to pay for their finance. I don't want to give my money to a politician that I don't even like. Why should they be able to do that? And they get to choose their own money. They get to choose what salary they get and elect for more if they want to. People have no say into that. So and politicians getting paid, how much, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and for public service.
Do you get the sense that nobody's coming up with solutions to the problems? They complain about the problems. For example, the Congress balance of power shifted in the midterm elections to the Democrats because people clearly were upset with the way this war in Iraq is progressing, and yet nobody seems to find a way to get out of there.
Well, yeah, the Democrats got voted in, and they said there was going to be a big change, and what happened to that? More of the same stuff. It's pretty difficult to find a politician you actually like. I guess everybody wants more money, and they want to enact more programs, and the average Joe who doesn't need any of that stuff gets hit by it. I don't need that much from the government. Just good defense or something like that. I don't need all these programs that we're paying for. I don't need them to take more of my money.
So obviously this gentleman, Dominic, is pretty reflective of the findings of the poll. Now, before you think that the poll is all negative, it also found that nearly 100% of us are proud of the men and women in our military. About 97% agree that our freedoms are worth fighting for. 96% are proud to be Americans. It did find that fewer than half believe that the nation is prepared for a major natural disaster. Fewer than half believes that the United States provides its residents with the best health and medical care in the world. And fewer than half believe that the surge in Iraq appears to be working. Nearly 2/3 believe that race relations in the nation are improving, which speaks to what we're going to discuss on the second half of the show. The Sacred Heart University Polling Institute poll has a, one of these days I'm going to learn how to talk. You think that if I'm doing a show such as this, I would learn how to speak. Has an error margin of plus or minus. And for those of you who aren't aware, Sacred Heart University is the second largest Catholic university in New England. So, interesting. Frankly, I would agree with much of what Dominic Barone had to say and what the poll reflects. I know many of you have heard me in the past express my displeasure with the politicians in Washington. It's business as usual in Washington, I am afraid, for many of our politicians, at a time when this country faces and this world faces some extreme challenges. Most notably, as far as I'm concerned, the challenge that is presented to us by the threat of terrorism and the reality of terrorism that occurs around the world, the number of terrorist attacks that have occurred, the number of terrorist attacks that have very thankfully been thwarted. I actually give credit to our intelligence services and our various police agencies for working together in a way in which they did not so well prior to 9/11 to bring us these kinds of positive results and stop terrorist attacks before they occur. However, that doesn't mean that those who would use that tactic against us because they disagree with our way of life have been dissuaded. Anyway, I don't want to make it just a conversation about terrorism, but I think people are frustrated. And I think that there are a lot of people, particularly young people, who feel disenfranchised from the political process. And no wonder it is so difficult to get people to come out and vote. Now, I'm not excusing it. I believe everybody should be involved in the process, and I think that we should, as citizens, not just vote, which is the bare minimum contribution to our republic, but we as citizens should also be pressuring our elected officials who we have appointed to represent us, and let our elected officials know what we think, what we want out of them, what we expect from them. And if they do not perform in a manner in which we want them to, we ought to elect other people who can and will. By the way, a lot of people, as I discuss this issue, suggest to me that it's very difficult to get people who are qualified and who are not beholden to special interest groups to run for elective office, especially national elective office. And I would argue that perhaps part of the blame goes to the misguided news media, because I believe the news media, rather than taking the more difficult route of investigating a person and their record and what they really stand for, because as we know, so many of these politicians say one thing, do another, say one thing to one group, and say something else to another group, change their position based on polling data, etc. Instead of holding their feet to the fire, we find other transgressions in their lives, which is more fun, I guess, to grab them with a gotcha. We magnify them. We play the stories about them when they screw up over and over and over again. And I believe all of us have skeletons in our closet. And just think of,